Hi, guys. Oh, I'm loud. Am I loud? No? Great, thanks. I'm Danielle Simmons. I'm the head of strategy at Shareability. Shareability, I like to say, we help brands and foundations speak internet by telling stories that people care about and therefore will share, hence shareability. And part of our foray and our engagement in the Web3 space is taking our storytelling expertise and stepping into what Web3 has to offer in terms of really building robust story worlds. So that's who I am. I would love to introduce this beautiful panel sitting next to me. On my left, I have Brian Kaplan. Brian is the VP of Marketing and Digital for MCO, and they represent one of the biggest country legends and the star of the show 1883, if anyone has seen it, Mr. Tim McGraw. And prior to that, Brian was the VP of Digital at Sony Music Nashville. To his left, we have LATASHÁ. LATASHÁ is a music artist. She's the founder of Her Story DAO, and she is the head of community programming at ZORA, which is an open protocol to help buy, sell, and curate NFTs on Ethereum. And then to her left, we have Kit Mueller. Kit is the VP of Corporate Development at Stronghold Digital Mining. And
Thanks, Dad.
they are an environmentally beneficial and vertically integrated Bitcoin miner.
Correct.
So before I let these wonderful people and experts speak more than me, I'd love to build on what Jamal said earlier and really help ground the purpose of today's panel and some of the things we want to talk about. And we know that Web3 is a revolution, and part of that revolution's promise is around accessibility and inclusivity. And we've made a lot of headway in that direction, I think. But anytime civilization goes through any sort of technological advancement, there are always populations that are at risk of getting forgotten or left behind, either on accident or on purpose, whether that's a lack of awareness, a lack of education, or purposeful systemic disenfranchisement. And so when I'm talking about these forgotten communities or excluded communities, I mean that in the broadest term. I'm talking about middle America, rural America, blue-collar America. I'm talking about underserved neighborhoods and urban centers, and particularly within those communities, BIPOC women. So there's a lot of groups that we're going to talk about today, and I'm really excited about the panel we have here because they represent those groups in very, very different ways and in some overlapping ways. So that's enough of me. Let's hop into it. We're going to start with kind of what's tough or what's wrong. My question for all three panelists is, what are some of the greatest obstacles that Web3 presents to your particular communities that you're involved in? And please feel free, I gave the smallest introduction, to speak a little bit more about the communities you're involved in. Sure. We'll start with Brian.
Sure. I represent obviously country music, and we are way slow to adoption in technology. We still have about 40 to 50% of our fan base that are buying CDs and listening to CDs. And we're struggling to even educate them about Spotify and what Spotify is. So we obviously have the challenge of trying to reach our audience and educate them like I try to educate my 75-year-old mom on what technology is. And so it's a much slower path for us to go forward in Web3.
Even when you think about working with someone like Tim McGraw, what are some of the things that stand in his way from exploring Web3?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the biggest thing is our audience. It's a brand thing as well as our particular audience and who we need to reach. And it just is beyond us at the moment to go that forward and try to educate our fan base now where we're trying to get them on Spotify. So.
Gotcha. Thanks, Brian.
For me, I represent a lot of different groups, obviously. I'm BIPOC woman, and then I'm also a hip-hop artist and musician. So the conflicts that we're really facing on our end is resources. A lot of artists don't have the knowledge base or the resources to learn about blockchain just yet. They don't have the equity or the income to get into it. And a lot of it is like us building with each other. Oftentimes I have to support our community by offering minting fees or offering education. I actually teach a course every other Wednesday called Zoratopia, where I'm teaching about 100 people a Wednesday about what Web3 is on the basic level and how it could help them and benefit them. And then there's just a lot of resistance to Web3 still, I feel, and a lot of miseducation out there on what Web3 is. And I often have to be the reminder of Web3 is an evolution of what we've already been building. It's an evolution of what we already been building. So a lot of my work is just repeating a lot of the same things over and over again. But it's really exciting because I've witnessed so many people's lives change through Web3. And we've onboarded over 500 artists now into the space. And now we're building these beautiful IRL events and really getting to meet the artists that are winning in this space now. And lives feel like they've opened up.
Awesome. Thank you, LaTasha. Kit, what about you?
So from our perspective, I'm with Stronghold Digital Mining. As she said, we are an environmentally beneficial, vertically integrated Bitcoin mining company. When you pull that apart, we have our legacy in waste coal reclamation. So we are cleaning up, we are literally leveraging 21st century crypto mining technology to alleviate some of the impacts of 18th and 19th century mining industrial prowess. So when I look at what the future, specifically with Web3 and blockchain and crypto in general, I think that inherently we're at Web3, meaning we've seen this play before in 1 and 2, and I think we're starting to make some of the mistakes of throwing fancy words and trying to keep these siloed like we did in Web 2. Web 1 was all about open protocols and the community and the users and the builders get the value. It got somewhat siloed. I think we have an opportunity now in Web 3 to bring that value back to us, and I think that that's why that there's such an advance forward, and keeping that inclusivity in mind. Right, it's not just about people that are developing the protocols or building the dApps. It's us, the builders and the users.
Great, thank you so much. This next question is going to go to Brian and to LaTasha in particular, given your deep involvement in the music space. But what opportunities do you see in particular for Web3 and music, especially when it comes to excluded or sometimes forgotten audiences or independent artists?
You want to go ahead?
Sure. I mean, just a little background on my story. I've been an artist for about 10 years now. And, I've been through the label walks. I've been through people telling me that I wasn't enough, that I didn't offer enough, that I needed to change my whole body and being just to be seen in the music industry. And I just fell into deep depression because of that. I fell into a loss with myself and with just my community at a whole because of that. And I took some time off, and then I started becoming an independent artist, DIY fully. And that walk was hard. I mean, I've been homeless, I've been without, I've dealt with all kinds of things. And it's not until I got into NFTs that I felt that my money wounds and my creative wounds were being healed, that something was really like connecting with my value that I give to my art. Mm-hmm. Something was coming back to me and giving back that energy that I needed, that I was giving out. And the community in itself is so amazing how we really interact with each other because we feel this sense of safety. Because we feel like we're building security, we're building something here. So we have to trust each other in some ways. And so what I think that this space is offering for the independent artists is a new form of wellness, a place where they really feel like they can be their fullest selves, their multidimensional selves, can really interact with people on a one-to-one basis, like their collectors or their patronage, whoever is a part of their worlds that they're growing. And then I think it's also giving them leverage, the opportunity to go to a label and say, hey, for example, myself, I made 13 ETH off of a music video. That's 50K just off of a music video that I still own the copyright, that I still own everything to. So thank you. So when a label tells me, oh, you're only worth this, I could now say, actually, this is what my community is actually saying I'm worth. So you need to step up that, contract. And now for the community side, I think what this offers is a whole new world of equity that, especially BIPOC artists didn't know that they would have. I never really stepped into the Bitcoin world, no beef kid, but because I was so scared of it, right? But when I found out about Ethereum and I found out about this new blockchain that we could really integrate art money, I like to say.
Art money?
Art money. That this is
I love
art
it.
Money. I think Ethereum is like an art money. Now communities are thinking about money differently. There's a new mindset on money, right? You know, I definitely changed my mind on like what $1 to $100 is. And also, it's allowing for communities to feel like they are really becoming a part of their favorite artist's journey. Like my vision for a lot of homies is to like win a Grammy with my community. Like, how could that look? That would be amazing, right? And now it's really changing the dynamic of artists to fan. Now it's becoming like community builders, which I really believe artists have always been.
What I love about that too is, I mean, Gen Z, which is their guiding culture in so many ways, that's what they want from artists. They want authenticity, they want connection,
Exactly.
they want behind the scenes. And what I'm hearing from you is Web3 is definitely a way to offer that to a very, very, very large group of music consumers.
Exactly.
Awesome. Thank you, LATASHÁ.
So welcome.
Brian, what about you? I mean, I know your journey inside of digital and Web3 is so different, particularly in the industry. Would love to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I think I love hearing that because our industry is so behind, as I said. But I think that's the opportunity is you know, country music is kept by only a few gatekeepers that are out there, and country radio is still really important in defining who a country artist is. And I think there's so much more to what country music is, and we could have a lot more diversity within our industry if people could self-fund and create an independent, you know, industry within country, because there really isn't very many independent artists in country. They're all on their way to the majors. They try, and if they fail, they're out. And I think this opens up the door for them to really try and break down the gatekeepers at the record labels and at the radio stations to really see who's mattering out there.
What are some of the creative ways in you're seeing for some independent artists? Like, how are independent artists in country music trying to make it or trying to get noticed?
Like I said, I mean, there's a few that I've seen out there that are really just, you know, posting social media and working the social media angle, but speaking to a specific niche, which again is never going to get it to mainstream because of the gatekeepers. So there really isn't much of an independent scene out there. There's a lot of songwriters. Songwriters is a big thing in country music, which you may not know about. There's a huge Nashville songwriter scene, and they write songs for artists to be pitched to the major labels. So I think that it could also help the songwriters in many ways, especially with royalties and all that future amazing stuff.
Just to like speak on that, I don't know much about country music, but I love it, but I don't know much about like the infrastructures of the industry within it. But I think on a hip hop realm and for like Black music realm, what I've witnessed is that, you know, we have similar lack of resources or lack of like push, and there's a whole lot of gatekeepers in hip hop, if you guys know. And we're witnessing now that this disruption with NFTs and Web3 is really scaring some people and exciting others. I've noticed like Snoop Dogg coming into NFTs. I've noticed like some of my favorite rappers figuring this walk out. But I'm really excited for the independent artists because I really think that this innately is built for the independent artists to figure out community building with Discord or Twitter Spaces, et cetera, et cetera. I think that this space also speaks to like just the engagement of audiences in a new way. You know, I think audience are now like, oh, I want to put my money up to this because if this artist does well and I resell this piece or resell this NFT, I'm going to win too. And so it's like a win-win for everybody. The artists are winning and the community is winning, right? And that's what I'm really excited to see more artists do with their independent walk, just really build more with the community in whole.
I love it. One more question on the music front. It goes without saying, I'm not sure if you guys know, there's a little artist who's playing next weekend. I think BCL is involved. Her name is Dolly Parton, and she is getting into Dollyverse. Brian, what makes her, as a major country music artist, what makes her so much different than the rest of the space?
Dolly's an icon, a legend. She's reached an international space. She's reached a whole different level than most country artists have. And I think that just obviously broadens her audience and gives her more opportunity. But I also think it's really important for someone like that to help lead the way.
Yeah.
And I think that's what she's going to do. I love her. She's amazing.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit of. This question is for Kit and LaTasha. Would love to know what opportunities or how and why is Web3 conducive for community building, particularly for maybe these typically left out groups. And I know LaTasha, you kind of started speaking to that a little bit. So we'll start with Kit, and then we'll go to LaTasha.
Well, so the good news is Web3 is community, right? And the better news is it's a community of teachers, right? It's all new to us, so as much as the best way to learn is to teach. So as I found out in our experience in this, when I meet with our competitors, I learn a lot more than I do from reading traditional media or vertical industries. So that excites me. It also reminds me a lot where I'm from at Pittsburgh. It's a community that if you raise your hand and you're doing good stuff, the community rallies around you and catalyzes you, right? So it's sort of intrinsic to these platforms. If you strip away all the vernacular and all the buzzwords, it's fundamentally about empowering a community of people that are contributing, right? So we as corporate citizens, specifically where we are in our industry and in our region in Pittsburgh, we want it to matter where we are. So both from the amazing talent in schools and people there, but we also want to be a contributor to it. So us advancing the industry while bringing people in, whether it's through education, through employment, or frankly just technical leadership, is intrinsic to our mission.
Can I one quick follow-up question before we head to LaTasha? For people who are new to Web3 or on just the early phases, you say Web3 is community with such confidence.
Yeah.
Help break that down for someone who doesn't get why Web3 is community.
Yeah, I think right now, this latest evolution of the technology platforms and protocols are sort of a refutation of the siloed aspects of where technology has been the last 10 years, right? If you break it down-ish, 95 to 2010, 90 to 2005, the rise of 1.0, we're going to use protocols that'll be community-based. And then, that was back when I was at the advent of that, the kind of inflection point. I remember playing Foursquare with Naveen and Denz over here, who were launching Foursquare, back when it was weird to check in and take pictures of what you were doing. Now it's how we live. That inflection point would seem like a watershed moment of like, oh, it's now the rise of the corporation. And I think right now what we're seeing is the rise of the individual builder and the individual contributor to that. So I think that it's also just a sensibility shift that we provide so much value to technology. We want some of the value exchange to be more on the user end.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kit.
I think that what we're speaking on is collective consciousness often. I think, through the pandemic, we were all tired of just how our lives were worked through corporation, through all these companies. And we were really just thinking about how to get rid of the middleman as a collective. I think so many people were thinking that. And now what Web3 is offering is this collective consciousness to come together and build things together. I work for ZORA, which is like this amazing protocol that's really dedicated to allowing open source code. And we show you all the code so you can build your own. And then we have other platforms built on top of ZORA. So we have Catalog Works for music. We have Artiva, which I call the new MySpace. We have Alta and all these different worlds built on top of it. And they start creating their own communities that are connected with ZORA's community, right? And now we're just seeing this universe kind of being built out of the same kind of mindset, out of the same kind of idea of pushing forward and transforming what was, And I think community to me at this moment is where our hearts want to be. I think the pandemic as a whole separated and isolated every single body to really be on some very lonely world. And then when we found Web3, we all kind of found each other. And now we could share these ideas, think about what else to build. Every time I had an idea for something that I wanted, I swear 3 weeks later, I seen it built at some capacity in Web3 with often artists attached to it, which is so beautiful as well.
You have an example of that?
I mean, I'm working at ZORA, and I didn't, before working at ZORA, I was just an artist. I was a musician. And, you know, they saw that I was building community, that I was growing community out of this Web3 thing. And then they wanted to give me a seat at the table. And that's the beauty, right? And I'm witnessing that happen for so many other artists like Iman Europe, Sassy Black. Now they're all working at these protocols or marketplaces and have a say to what this marketplace is going to do. What is it going to give to the audience? What is it going to give to the artists? And that's what I'm excited about, because that was before, you know, corporations wasn't allowing that. I don't know any corporation that was hiring artists really except for Jay-Z. But like, you know, where are we now? We're at a place where I also get to build my own table at the same time, which is a beautiful thing. So Zora's like, hey, learn all this knowledge and work with us and build with us. And then I could at the same time build what I want to build and see that world grow. And I think that's the beauty of where we are right now with Web3.
Is there any fear? I mean, you've talked about a lot about the organic community that gets created, and corporations are not the ones who are starting these things. But with, again, any technological advancement, corporations are going to try to make their way in. Is there fear of that in this particular space, or is there something so innate about Web3 that you don't think that corporations can come in and actually try to dominate part of the space?
I definitely have had my fears, and I definitely already witnessed corporations trying to come through, and some have. But I think because this space is community driven, the community knows what's not real and what's fake. And oftentimes I've witnessed like Corps come in and try to do their NFT thing, and they make a cash grab, and then the community's like, oh, this is a dub. This is not really great for us. And that's the beauty of this space, that we all speak to each other and know what to align with and what's real and what speaks to the heart of the people. At the root, this is still people, you know? I think oftentimes when we're talking about technology, we forget that this is not AI, this is people behind it. And I'm excited for the people that are behind it, because we're gonna really shape what this thing becomes.
Kit, what about you?
Yeah, I just want to echo hers. It's so some of the intrinsic building blocks of all this assume that, so the decentralized nature of it, the transparency of it, assumes this explicit accountability, right, from the community, right? So I think that the gatekeepers are now us, and I can guarantee that there will be corporate winners, kind of bigger pools of influence, but they won't be the same ones, at least having not gone through and responded to the community needs.
Awesome. Thank you. My next question is for Kit and Brian. How do you think about engaging Web3 in Middle America? We can start with Kit, and then we'll go to Brian.
Sure. So, as I said, we are effectively a environmental power generation company that has these co-located massive data centers. So the hard work that we do, that's done, is done in rural America. It's done in Venango County. It's done in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. These beautiful hamlets of town that depend on the power company for their livelihood and sort of their esteem, a lot of the esteem. The great news is that we've now, catalyzing blockchain, we're able to catalyze these communities as well. So we feel that there's three ways, right? One, block and tackle, we can hire a lot of people. We can employ at very good jobs, right? Very high wages. Two, we can also give more of a context of what these technologies are. When you have somebody in your family or yourself are actually firsthand working at our data centers, it takes it away from this ethereal thing that you just hear on the internet, and it becomes a real thing. There's a pride to it. There's an industry to it. So that context, and then frankly, what we're working on very hard is education. Right? What's going to happen here, and we can't fall prey and make the same mistakes we did before, but there's this overarching fear of new, right? It's all that's new. What's a DAO? What's an L3 chain? What's all this? Let's take that away and just talk about like the value and the purpose. And so I think that it's inherent, to, at least to us at Stronghold, to lead there.
Thanks, Kit.
Yeah, I'm a strong believer in the marketing message has got to change completely, because nobody gets it except for these guys.
We're early.
But in addition, I think, you know, it's got to integrate seamlessly into people's lives so that they don't actually have to even think, at least in Middle America. And like I said, I think there's a little bit of a disenfranchised feeling from Middle America to the coasts.
Yeah.
And we see it in Hollywood especially, which is why 1883 and Yellowstone were so successful. They took a Middle America story and positioned it to Middle America, and it became huge there. But the rest of Hollywood and Middle America just don't connect. So I think in the same way, we need to build it from within Middle America for Middle America and speak to these people because they don't understand it coming from the coasts.
You got to meet them just with any other new technology or new platform. You got to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
Right? You can't. And there's going to be many swings and misses because we're super early. But it just you got to talk the way that normal people talk. You can't intentionally be siloed or out of the context of what happens just talking to each other.
Exactly.
Great. And I just want to mention, too, I think something that surprised, piggybacking on the 1883, something that surprised people was it was record-breaking, right?
It was. Yeah, it was. It's now surpassed Yellowstone in the most streamed this year.
Most streamed debut?
But it was the most streamed debut show in the last 5 to 6 years or something like that. Yeah.
It's a good show.
Yeah.
It's a good show. But I think it surprised a lot of people in coastal Hollywood. I mean, I lived in LA for 16 years. I think it surprised a lot of people in LA and other coastal cities as a show that would do well because they forget about Middle America. And I think it's, to both of your points, speaking the language they speak.
Yeah, I mean, we've always built these things, like I said, from the coasts, not thinking that there's still 50% of America that's sitting somewhere else. And we need, like I said, we need to build it for them as well.
Awesome. Well, my last question is for all of you, and that is, what excites you most about the possibilities of Web3 to make good on its promise of inclusivity? And I'll start at the end. I'm going to start with Kit, and we'll work our way this way.
Well, I can say that everything happens in this space times 10, right? I've been building venture-backed companies for, let's just say 20. We know it's 30 years. And the speed at which everything happens has been an order of magnitude faster. That's good because it's going to impact people more. But it also assumes that there's some old heads still at the table that can take some of the lessons and make sure that we're intentional of how this future is spelled out. And there's also this, never more than any time I've ever been at building anything, that there's an expectation of accountability to the user and the builder, right? The things that we're doing now, we owe it to the community out of the gates just to pass the laughing test, that this is responsible to the user, that this is responsible to the communities that we're in, and frankly, the environment that we're in.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk, I know you mentioned the environment that we're in, that can be construed in a couple ways, but can you speak for a second, too, about some of the ways that Stronghold Digital is overcoming some of the environmental challenges, the physical environmental challenges, too?
You're the second person to ask me in a week, and the other one was 8 Senate Democrats. So we are at our heart, we clean up some of the 900 waste coal sites throughout our state, just in our state. One of the ones we're working on is 200 acres, 200 feet deep, and about 20% of the time they're on fire. So we go in and we catalyze that reclamation effort by using 21st century crypto. So let me break that down. We have these massive coal piles throughout Pennsylvania that were a vestige of the industrial prowess of the 18th and 19th century. We, at our hearts, that is our mission, that is our major deliverable. We provide that fuel, we clean that up, we provide that fuel to special built electric generation facilities that we have co-located data centers on that currently mine Bitcoin. So the more we can mine at the Bitcoin, the more we power our special use reclamation electric generator facilities, and the more we can clean up. So it's this fascinating rust built, right? Like, I mean, we literally build America, and I think that the next chapter in America's history can be catalyzed by the things that we're doing in our region.
Thank you, Kit. LATASHÁ, what about you?
Can you repeat the question one more time? 'Cause
Yeah.
Kit just got me into a whole world with the mind.
Would you like to respond?
No.
Okay.
Please.
No.
What excites you most about the ability of Web3 to make good on this promise of inclusivity?
I think what excites me is the transformation of narrative. I think I'm really tired of Web3 just looking like, crypto bros and white male being, no beef to the white males out here, but I'm just ready for a different story to be pushed and a different look to be pushed and representation. And so I'm really excited for us as a community to put other stories to the forefront of crypto and other, peoples and ideas and identities to the forefront of crypto. That is going to really shift the world to me. When we could have more BIPOC artists in the forefront, when we could have more BIPOC developers, more, trans, developers in the space, when we could just have different identities coming to the forefront, I think the world in itself will pay attention, not like how they're paying attention now, because now we're making it human. Now we're making it to the layman. Now we're making it to anybody. And that's where I'm ready for. And I hope I could do all the work I can to make it as human as possible, make people feel like they could be a part of this thing.
Thank you.
Wow. For me, it's about the art and the opportunity within art. I've spent a long time, I'm not going to age myself, at major record labels, and I've seen a lot of really, really talented people come through the system and fail. And they failed for stupid reasons, reasons beyond their control. And I think there's a lot more opportunity for them to develop outside of the system now. And I think that this is a great opportunity for that. And I think as well, just that, we don't talk about this, but as a former recovering photographer, I think there's a lot of opportunity in the visual arts and for these people as well, and to bring out more diverse art.
Yeah.
I said that was my last question, but that's a lie. I have another question for all of you that's dawning on me, and it's something I wanted to ask you all earlier when we were hanging out. So I'm newer to the Web3 space in general. I think Shareability, there's a lot of advanced minds and really smart minds on it, but I've been playing catch up inside of our organization, and I'd be really curious to know what was the moment that made Web3, and you can speak about NFTs or Bitcoin or Ethereum. What was the moment that made it click for you? Like, when did you get it? And I'll let anyone who wants to start, because I know I didn't.
I had a few moments. It was like click, click, click. But at the top was when I realized that that we already have been building the internet. Like, people have been building the internet, through Tumblr, through social media, through whatever. We have always been building the internet. So now it's just time to get value for what we've built. And as a musician, it clicked when I thought about vinyl, like how people like to collect vinyl. People like to collect different things as a musician, right? And so I would assume people would also want to collect my digital assets as well. So that was another click. The click that I love a lot is fashion. I think about my homie Bobby Hundreds, who always talks about fashion and Web3 on the same planes. And people love to collect clothing, sneakers, all types of fashion. So why not want to also collect a digital asset? But my favorite moment of clicking is when my partner paid his rent and like for 5 months straight was just paying his rent off of NFTs when we first started. And that was a big deal to me because he had just lost his job from the pandemic. He had just lost, everything. And, one day he was like, babe, I'm getting into NFTs. And I was like, what is an NFT? That was when I didn't know what was he talking about. And he was like, it's some way for me to sell my art online. And I was like, okay. And I was skeptical, didn't believe him, was real scared. But I watched him for months study and really get into like the copyright ideas, the blockchain, transparency, etc. And then he was paying his rent, he was paying his bills, he was taking care of himself like with ease. And I was like, okay, I gotta know what's going on here.
Seriously.
And that to me is the most important. When somebody feels like they could just have wellness in this space, that's when it really clicks for people. So yeah, those were mine.
Awesome. Brian, Kit, what was the moment of?
Well, so I actually had that. It was a flashback. I remember I was early Web 1.0 building these open standards, competing against behemoths like AOL, transferring technology out of Carnegie Mellon, and that the aha moment was the scale that we could get by building these like large networks, right? And I remember being up at our power facility up in Venango and seeing one of these containers filled with the beautiful sound of mining Bitcoin, the hum of the fans, and just realizing the scale at which we could do this. I mean, we've basically went from like a seed stage company to a public company in under a year, which is unheard of, and we're not slowing down. So just that velocity was when I'm like, this is the next thing. There's something here.
And Brian, what about you?
It's still clicking. I'm keeping an open mind, but no, it's the evolution. It's really important that we all pay attention to it. And like I said, it's still, you guys are teaching me stuff sitting here. It's still clicking, and it's important to keep looking at that. There were times, like I said, when iTunes and streaming were brand new and people didn't get it. And I think it's really important that us in our industry looks at this as a very important next step.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, I think the final thing I'd love for you to ask is to plug the other panels that you're on as well. This is not the last time you can hear from these wonderful, brilliant minds. Mm-hmm. I think all of you are on another nope, not Kit at some point, but LaTASHA, you're on.
Yeah, I'm on the Beyond the JPEG panel, the Next Frontier, and then I'm reading it. Sorry, y'all. Unicorn DAO panel with Pussy Riot today as well. So
awesome.
Pull up.
I have no idea what the names are. Just searching the thing. There's one on music branding next week and one on TV.
Awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough. I believe we have question Q&A. It's going to happen out there. All right, so we're going to take these panelists and head out yonder for some Q&A. Please join us, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much.